Meeting of the Planning Commission to order. It's Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. I've asked Member Taylor to offer a word of prayer, and afterwards, if you'd all rise with us and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we're grateful to live in this great nation, in a beautiful place. Privileged to do so. We're grateful for the participation in these meetings. We ask thee to bless us that we will be able to make good decisions, be open to input, and we ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to welcome everyone here. We really enjoy it when we have company. Sometimes it gets kind of lonely. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I have a motion by Member Wilson.
Second.
And a second by Member Maloney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Anyone on the commission have a conflict with any agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. The next is public comment. If you notice on our agenda, we have two administrative items. These items do not have a separate public hearing, so if you wish to address the commission on item number 6, the Meadowbrook subdivision, or number 7, WPR Mountain Villa plat, now will be the time for you to address the commission. If you wish to make comments on the legislative items, 8 and 9, we will have separate public hearings for each of those items. So if you'd like to come up to the mic and please state your name, and you're limited to 3 minutes on your comments. So if you could keep it short, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Anthony Dorsey. I live in Whittier Estates. Just wanted to make a couple brief comments. This is about the Meadowbrook Phase 2 development. Just wanted to start by saying I was hesitant to come and say anything because I have a friendship with the developer and fully respect his right to be able to develop that parcel of land and even support that. I just have some issues with the current design. I wanted to express I had a chance to share that with the developer already as well, but just figured I'd put that out into the public here now as well. So my concern is more about like a specific engineering concern, and it has to do with having a 3-lot design and with drainage. And I think it can be resolved, at least this is just my suggestion, I'd love for the developer and the county to consider, is to change the proposed plat map from 3 lots to 2. In my opinion, this would address several concerns from the community and several people in the area. The lot above the parcel that's being developed has some geological questions because of having a 3rd lot, and then my issue though is specifically around drainage, as I mentioned. So just in clear, plain terms, so everybody's aware, here's kind of the situation for myself. So my house sits at the bottom of this corner parcel that's being developed. Everything slopes down towards my house, towards the north. And as I'm sure everybody is aware, Whittier Estates has a very high groundwater situation, in addition to the significant amount of surface water that exists. So to give you an idea, I have 3 sump pumps that run year-round because of the high groundwater and because of the amount of surface drainage that all come towards my house at the moment. In fact, I've spent thousands of dollars breaking up my basement floor, putting in a drain field that directs all of the water towards these sump pumps, and then it has nowhere to go. I can't pump it into my backyard, so I actually ran sump pump lines up the the front of my house out to the curb. I can't pump it straight into the curb. The county won't allow that and wouldn't want to see water constantly pumping because it runs constantly. So I ran it all the way down to the other end of my neighborhood where the only storm drain exists. There isn't another storm drain at the top of the neighborhood that goes uphill towards this parcel. That's also an issue from the previous developer of Whittier Estates. They neglected to do that. It was something that was overlooked. So I'm actually pumping water and trying to mitigate water by putting it further down in the neighborhood. The only other storm drain is actually above this parcel of land, higher. So you can't really get to those either, right? Water doesn't drain uphill. So all of that water is just kind of being directed towards my home at the moment. And I hadn't seen the proposed plan until yesterday. But the proposed drainage and water mitigation plan is to dig detention areas, basically just dig a hole in the ground for each lot. So after you add houses with roofs, driveways, hardscape, all of that creates significantly more surface water. The current plan is to collect those in holes in the ground that are above my house and let them drain into the ground and just go straight at the foundation of my home. So that doesn't solve the current drainage issue. It will take my existing issue and exacerbate it and make it much worse. On the map, one of the proposed detention areas that's in the corner for the lot exactly adjacent right next to mine is actually an existing low spot where I've had to put a trash pump in the field to pump water out of the field into the street just to get away from my house. And so the current plan says, let's make that worse, collect all the water in that area and just let it sit. So I have no idea what to say with that, but that plan doesn't work. And I also don't think it actually meets code for what Morgan requires in terms of drainage. So again, I think you could solve that by doing 2 lots instead of 3, because those 2 lots would look exactly like mine. You could grade them so that they slope towards the curb, exactly like my lot, and the 3 lots like right next to mine, kind of long, skinnier lots. So instead of having 1 long, skinny one next to me and then 2 that face the opposite direction where everything then flows towards me, you could slope it appropriately towards the curb and actually have it drain properly that way. Morgan County Code, I tried to look this up, but there's some specifics. It looks like you have to have some sort of discharge plan. You also have to have something that mitigates any potential harmful impact. So section 155.141 requires that they demonstrate mitigation of potential harmful impact. That's a quote. Without those calculations, which I haven't seen, maybe they exist, I believe this plat can't be approved tonight unless there's some sort of adequate drainage plan that doesn't appear to be present here. So that's my concern. The developer has expressed an interest in trying to do something different with drainage, which I think is good, but I don't think you can legally approve the plat until we actually address that.
Your 3 year.
Yep, okay, sounds good. So I just wanted to say that, I support the effort to develop it. I don't have an issue with that, just the drainage I would like addressed, and that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jordan Curtis. I live right up the hill from this planned subdivision. I'll echo pretty much everything that Anthony said. I have no problem with that area being developed. I think that should be the owner's right. The 3rd lot forces a house to be built right at the base of my hill. And the hill that I have at the top of it has a pool that has already had a little bit of shifting and cracks. I'm very concerned that movement at the bottom of that hill, and it looks like it has to be just tucked right up against the property there, will have some pretty big effects on my property. That's really all I have to add. Everything else that Anthony said that I just confirm on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. And item number 6. This is the Meadowbrook subdivision plat, subdivision, phase 2, small subdivision, preliminary and final plat.
Goodness. First time doing one of these, so please be patient. And please. Chris Tremea. I serve as the code enforcement officer, but filling in for planning department tonight due to a surgery and a graduation, which both of those needed to be to. So just going to start off. We're here for the Meadowbrook subdivision phase 2, small subdivision preliminary and final plat. Applicant, owner, Brent Bowman. Project location approximately west of the intersection of North Thurston Drive and west 3725 North in unincorporated Morgan County. Parcel number 1-3258, just to make it short. Excuse me, 00-001-3258. Current zoning residential R120. The request is for preliminary and final plat approval of the Meadowbrook subdivision, phase 2, small subdivision, for the creation of 3 lots. Attorney guidance, this is for administrative review. The sole issue in land use administration is whether the application complies with county ordinances. If it does, as you all know, it must be approved. Some of the discussions, recommendation, county staff has reviewed the application for preliminary and final plats for the Meadowbrook Phase 2 small subdivision. Staff is hereby recommending approval of the requested preliminary and final plat based on the following findings and with conditions listed below. I just saw Jesse passing out some information that of some of the information that we received in the last 48 hours. We wanted to make sure that those were presented to the commission to be put into the record. But some of the findings are that the subdivision is in conformance with current land uses of the area, that the proposal complies with applicable zoning and subdivision regulations. Number 3, that the proposal is not detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Some of the conditions that are already in place are that all outsourced consultant fees are paid current prior to final plat recordation. 2, that all other local, state, and federal laws are adhered to. 3, that the county engineer, surveyor, and fire services comments are all addressed. And number 4, that the plat drawings shall be revised to prohibit basements due to high groundwater conditions that the detention areas are provided for in each lot. Some of the project description. The rezone, we all know, took place March 1st, 2022. It's a 10.17 acre portion, which was fully rezoned at that time to R120. This is the area that the applicant is proposing to subside into 3 lots. The remaining 18.14 acres were left with a pre-existing split zoning, meaning that portion of the property retains both R120 and A20 designations. Want to skip ahead to I'm just going to be expressing some of the concerns. Right now I'm on page 4. Grading and drainage plan may be combined with the plat sheet if approved by the county engineer. I have been on the phone with the county engineer, county geologist today, addressing some of the concerns that the public had. And actually the engineer agreed with a few people, and we made some ideas for some different conditions that can be placed upon the plat for your recommendation tonight. But there's one of the concerns was the geo history. It has received a geo waiver, but please know that one of the conditions in the plat is that they could not build into the hill there. It is to be non-disturbed. I'm going to be switching over to, as we already mentioned, one of the conditions is basements not allowed. The engineer, as reading that, felt like it could be a little firmer, and wanted to make a comment that this is his words, Mark Miller, Morgan County Engineer. I noticed that the note regarding no basements is not strong enough. I strongly recommend slab-on-grade homes because of the groundwater issues evident from the homes in the neighboring community of Whittier Estates. Okay? It just kind of left a door open for, walkout basements, which is not going to be of concern with that condition that could, if you wanted to be placed upon it. Some of the other engineered comments: the plans show that the hillside cannot be disturbed. The buildable area is designated away from the hillside. Some of the other notations: any subdivision approval needs to be conditioned upon the construction drawing approval, which, talking with the chair prior, we already have that documented. She does. Our ordinance does require that the developer to detain all new runoff water to ensure no additional drainage water flows from a developed lot. The detention needs to be sufficient to prohibit drainage releases to be equal to what they were on the undeveloped ground. I do not believe that the note on the plat about this issue is sufficient, and I am waiting for the construction drawings so that we can do a thorough analysis, which the drainage issues could be determined with the construction drawings. Okay? Right now, the drain pipes are only sized for a 10-year storm event, which is there, and the streets serve as drainage channels for higher intensity storms. One of the concerns was about septic systems, and the health department has jurisdiction over those issues, so it's not the county, but we do communicate with them. One of the issues that was brought up was concerning the zoning, and they wanted it to be involved in the Whittier Estates project, which could not happen regardless. But the zoning of the property is R120 and allows for 20,000 square foot lots. The roads into and out of Whittier Estates are public right-of-ways, and the county will continue to maintain those roads. As they are public roads, all public traffic is allowed to continue to use, and this pertains to future development along the connecting streets. Subdivisions, according to our code, are required to provide connectivity to adjacent properties to facilitate and handle future growth. So, I do believe you've got all those copies, Madam Chair. So there's a couple recommendations that we could make tonight that is put in front of you. There's one, the recommended motion for approval that you could make as is. A recommended motion for approval with conditions. Please note, if you were to make a recommendation in that section, that you would please change one notation in there, and it says allowing for a 1-lot subdivision. It would be allowing for a 3-lot subdivision. Some of the condition ideas that you might want to place upon it, if you felt like that was required, would be that it's only approved with the condition of a construction drawing approval, a no walkout basements, and slab on grade homes. Okay, those are just different ideas that you might be able to follow upon with yourself. But Jesse, could you scroll down to page 11, please? It takes us to the vicinity map. So this is approximately the location of the subject property, as most people in the public would be aware of. Go ahead and skip. This is the layout, which I already I've heard a few mentioning that they're already aware of it, with the detention basins within. There are some different ideas that I've even heard the property owner talking about. There's different ideas that he would be able to bore underneath one of the right-of-ways to be able to put it upon another place which he owns into the next phase. Go ahead and go to the next. Okay. And I would like to give the opportunity, I do believe that the applicant's engineer is here. If he would like to say anything, I'll leave that up to him. Okay. If you would like to. Okay, what's your name? Jess? Okay.
Most of you know me, I'm Jess, Mountain Engineering. We did do a grading and drainage plan for the subdivision that looks like it's not included in the packet here. So we've addressed some of those issues. You know, we do have some ideas about how to take care of the drainage issue there, especially right at the corner of the gentleman's house there. So that stuff can be reviewed by Mark Miller. He maybe hasn't had a chance to get to it or what, but that stuff is available, and we'll work with him to get all these minor issues taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Is there anything else that the commission would need answered, or?
Do you have any more questions for staff?
I got a couple of ones, Chris. I'm just curious, just my own curiosity. How much, when you figure a 10-year event, how many gallons, how big are these retention basins you're requiring to be built? How do they figure with?
I'm not even gonna take a guess, but I know when the water's high enough, the water's high enough.
That'd probably be a question for Jess, right?
Jess might be able to. You can come on up, Jess.
Have you done a stormwater study yet on it, or?
So basically a 10-year event, 10-year recurrence interval. We would take a certain volume of water, whether that's, I'd probably do a 1-hour storm, and that's probably 1 3/4 inches of water. So that falling over the surface, we would plan on detaining that amount of water. And usually we just look at the additional hard surface to size those detention areas. And I think we came up with, it's like 1,100 cubic feet per lot, taking into account the house and the driveway. And so that's how we kind of size those little detention areas on the lots. We haven't done the street in this case because it's already built, and it goes towards Whittier Estates, the existing street. So, anything else? Does that help at all?
What's your release rate?
The release rate depends on the acreage. So we
Per acre.
per acre 0.2 CFS is usually the maximum. So in this case, we don't have ponds and like we do in a bigger development with ponds and outlet structures and whatnot. We're just providing the individual areas on the lots that the code requires. So So what happens is we are allowed a certain amount of discharge, and we usually restrict that to 0.2 CFS. So anything in addition to that gets detained. But in this case, we don't have an outlet really. We're just providing that storage on the lot to account for the additional hard surface, on the property. And it's not perfect, but it's what we can do.
But we're not taking into account any subsurface water at this
No,
point. So if we dig a detention basin, do we know what elevation the groundwater's at? Are we going to be into groundwater naturally?
We wouldn't be into groundwater. They're not so much as holes in the ground as what we want to see is just a low area where the water, ponds when we get a large thunderstorm. So these are not, we're like to see these not more than 2 feet deep. And with the fill that's brought in around the homes, we wouldn't have a situation where we've got a hole in the ground. In fact, if it's done properly, you really wouldn't even recognize it as being a detention area. So it doesn't take a very big area, a foot deep, to account for the cubic footage that we need.
So when you have a 12-year event, or a 13-year event,
Right.
14-year event, or anything else other than a 10-year event, where does that water go?
Where it would naturally overflow to.
You're concentrating it though, right? You're making it go towards this pond, like you're gathering everything, and it's gonna go to this little pond area. So it's no longer gonna flow naturally, it's gonna have a concentrated point of release.
Yeah, it's gonna release wherever it overflows. We can't, in a situation where everything's been developed, we can't really, we can't account for absolutely any situation.
I guess the question is it gonna make its way to the road, or is it gonna make its way to the neighbors?
It's gonna make its way, depending on how they grade the property,
Who grades the property? The neighbors or these three lots?
the builder.
Of these three lots.
These 3 lots. So yeah, the answer is it goes either to the street, into our drainage areas, or if it overflows that way, it goes downhill.
So is there a way to design these so that anything that's in excess of the capacity of the pond that you're gonna make there makes its way to the street and not the neighbors?
Yeah, we can design these so that they overflow to the street, and do that with our
Is there a way to incorporate that? Because a lot of this is dependent on what a house, I mean, you guys showed a house on each of these lots, which I think is weird. But is there a way to incorporate that design into the subdivision itself so that there's a berm or something that would stop any runoff from going onto the neighbors if it was in excess of the capacity of the pond?
right. If we added,
Rather than leaving it up to the builder.
right, if we added the requirement for a berm or something to that effect, then we could.
But that's doable with what you see on the grading of the site?
Yeah, I think we could accommodate that for sure. Just something so there's no possible way it can go beyond that berm.
Right.
It has to go to the street. So, or whatever we can come up with there to ensure that it doesn't go where it's not supposed to.
What would that be, if not a berm that just cuts it off? And takes
If we
it to the
don't have a
street?
berm to get it up to the street height, we would go with the culvert. We could possibly do a culvert under the existing road, just to get that storm water to the other side of the street at least.
So then you would have an overflow place and a release?
Yeah, so in that case, we would have a ponding area, you know, a detention area, and then we would have the overflow going either up to the street level, or probably what would work better is if we just do a culvert under the street to get it to the other side. And that way when it reaches a certain depth, it'll flow across the street through the pipe rather than in the roads.
So part of the concerns that I've heard is, and I don't know whether we're,
No, we don't take comments.
so, part of the concern that I read about or heard is that if we're just allowing this to stay in the pond and percolate down into the groundwater, that it's going to exacerbate the problem that the neighbors have, or at least that neighbor has. So is there a way to just, and I don't know what the county code is for required drainage of a pond that has to show that it perks out in 36 hours, 72 hours, 48 hours. I don't know what that is. But is there a way to show that we can actually release it somewhere else? And, you know, so all you're doing is attenuating the peak, and then you're allowing it to release and getting it out of that little local area.
We can do
Would that be the culvert that you're talking about?
you know, sometimes we put a, you know, a box there so it overflows, and then it's kind of restricted to a certain flow rate going out. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I do think we can come up with something there that would work.
Are you're the applicant? You just itching to, I mean, you look like you're itching to say something.
We'll get them up here when we're done.
Okay.
Over to Brent here.
But we'll make sure we're done asking staff questions, and then we can bring the applicant up.
I have a series of questions for staff.
Thank you.
So I made and I got all the emails too, everybody did.
Yep.
I made a list of things and then I went and looked.
Okay.
And took a look at things. And I think you've addressed some of these. I just want to hit a couple of points. One of the issues brought up was driveway safety and slope coming on and off. I didn't see it the same way, but I understand what they were thinking. Water runoff and drainage, that's clearly an issue. The groundwater piece and septic and other things, I know the health department has it, but do you happen to know if it's been perk tested in any way yet?
So the perk tests are done after this.
Okay.
So and that,
So we don't know
correct.
exclusively what the groundwater piece is.
And that, you know, some of the comments from you know, Commissioner Taylor, some of those items in there would be able to resolve that.
Okay. We're not getting close to the hill, so the geological stability issue, but we're relying on the fact that anything we do down there in the bottom is not going to impact geological stability.
The no build.
But the engineer looked at that.
Yes, our engineer and geologist
Right.
looked at that. Yep.
Because it says in there they had some issues that were being addressed, but we don't get to see the issues, so.
Yep. They, anytime, you know, the comment is mentioned, that they adhere to their comments. That was one of their comments to us, is the no build into the hill.
And it does fit lot conformity, so we don't have that issue. So we're back to the groundwater and drainage. Thank you.
On your no build, buildable envelope, no build, I can't remember how it was labeled. It's on the other page that I can't pull up on my iPad. It's on the other page in the packet.
Yep,
For this, I think.
I do know that I've been getting very familiar with no builds, especially up in many other subdivisions in the Highlands and different things. No build is no build. No build is no swimming pools. No build is no landscaping, no sprinkling systems.
Okay, it says non-buildable area.
Yep.
You said it differently. You said no, non-disturbance area.
Non-disturbance.
So is a non-buildable area defined in our code that says you can't cut into it, put a retaining wall, or you can't, there are things that, does it define what you can and can't do on a non-buildable area? Or is no disturbance, what's the best way to label that?
I would probably put the non-disturbance area. I believe that would be an appropriate measure that could be placed. Non-disturbance of that hillside. And I feel pretty safe that the engineer and geologist would be very safe or satisfied in having me say that.
Yeah, it just wasn't clear to me what non-buildable means.
Yeah, just the house moving, the home that's being built there is out of that particular area.
That's what I think it means. But that's not what you said, and I think I tend to agree with what you said, which was non-disturbance versus non-buildable.
I do believe that somebody had mentioned a swimming pool that was put very near to that non-buildable area, you know, and that would be a clear violation, and that's part of why code enforcement is around to be able to attain to those things. And if you're here in the public, I'm sorry.
Chris, have you looked at Tony Dorsett's problems at all? Have you?
Yes, his was one of the emails that came in. I've really tried, and I sat down with, yeah, it's, when it got.
What's your opinion on it? What do you think? What's your opinion on how that would affect him?
You know, looking at it and hearing what the engineer made statements of, that they could put a route going underneath the road to put it to the other side, which would take it away from the subdivision of concern, I think is an appropriate item to be concerned with, and I feel like that answers that particular question.
Would that mitigate his problems with water? If we did that?
I'm not going to claim to be an engineer, nowhere close, but I just heard that engineer who has that make that statement. And I do believe by addressing that in a condition that our engineers could take a closer look at that and make sure that that is feasible. That's why there's two parties working together and not just one to make it go through.
So there is something here that I just trying to read the information and look at this with the stuff that we're getting right here. Something's really bothering me a little bit, and it's mostly lot 15. So I know that septic is not really in the purview of the county. It's with the health department.
Yes.
However, looking at that, there are certain codes from the state that a septic system would be required to follow, and there's a couple of them here that I'm really questioning, specifically with lot 15. Going back to the groundwater issue, it sounds like he's got a basement. Mr. Dorsey does,
And I do believe that there was no basements allowed in that
subdivision.
and that's kind of why they're going through what they're going through, or lessons learned from the previous.
That's fair, and I appreciate that. But just doing some extrapolation, say, somebody goes out there with a backhoe, does a test pit, they find water at 5 feet or 6 feet. There's going to be heavy restrictions on a septic system. Where's that drain field going to go on lot 15? And if it goes on lot 15, is that going to hit even close to the groundwater, because you have to maintain 4 feet of distance between groundwater and bottom of septic. So there's just a lot of hurdles that somebody is going to have to go through to even consider building on lot 15.
I wouldn't disagree with that. That is also one of the things that, you know, is left up to the engineers to be able to find out. And if they're not able to meet code from the health department, then they won't be able to build upon it. And I do know that that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be stuck with. It's code enforcement, right? And I think after communicating with the property owner, he is aware that it's something we will be continuing to communicate about for the next little while, especially while they're building it. And that's why I like the clarity of slab on grade. You won't be digging down. And, you know, I've heard stories from the previous building official who had, actually it wasn't him, but he heard it from the one before, that they said no basements, but yet people are digging down. And it just didn't make any sense. I don't let that happen. I hear about it, I get them a letter, I take stop work orders out, I follow the ordinance, and it's done that way. You don't get to continue. And that's one of the things. I don't like to be a babysitter with it. We have an amazing building official now who is out doing amazing things, and we work great together as a team and communicating daily about different things going on in the county. So thank you for bringing that up, though.
And thank
Spot
you,
on.
Chris. Honestly, it's not something that I would deny this for, but it's just going to be a big ask. So
I understand.
Any more questions, staff, before we get the applicant?
Can you explain to me, do you know the plan that Brant has to run the water away from those properties?
I had called him into the office earlier to make him aware of several, not to divulge the contact information from the letters. I do believe that that is not within my scope. But I did go over some of the concerns. He came in, he did mention some of the culvert dig out and go under the right of way, put a line in and take it to the other side of the street so it goes somewhere else and not toward those property owners of concern. So I did appreciate that. I did ask Brent earlier if, you know, he wanted to speak. He actually said, not unless I absolutely have to. I do believe that a lot of the things that he had talked to me about, we've covered. So unless he absolutely wants to talk, you might just stay sitting down. There you go.
Brent, just state your name so we have it on record.
Before Whittier Estates went in, my family farmed that ground for 40 years. We leased it after Frank Whittier died, and I was familiar with it. And I worked with the developer. I mean, it wouldn't be there if I didn't run and put a road across it. And when I saw that people were digging basements out, I'm the one that came to the county and said, it's not a good idea. But it happened. I didn't create the problem. The people that put the basements in Whittier Estates created the problem, to be clear. The issue that we're addressing with water is not a surface drainage issue. It's a groundwater issue, okay? Now, they built those homes. This is my meadow grass field. I flow irrigated it. When I started flow irrigating it, they started complaining that I was flooding their basement. Which is really their problem. It's not my problem. We've flow irrigated that field for over 100 years. But I asked the people that are managing my property to do it as least as they can to get the crops off of it. So whatever we do here as far as surface water, Yeah, right now, if ground's frozen with rain, the water's gonna pop right here. Totally.
It's a touch screen.
Anthony's right there. Okay? Now, I can help Anthony a little bit by boring under this road and putting a pipe along here where each person in each lot can have a low spot that drains to that pipe and goes under the road. That might help Anthony a little bit, but it's not gonna help this guy. Because it's a groundwater issue. And this little, less than 3 acres, isn't creating the groundwater issue that the 300 acres around here in the river create. It's insignificant. There is a way to help solve the problem, but the Weaver Morgan Health Department's in our way. Because I, to help solve that problem, wanted to put 5 lots along here and then sell all the way to the slough here, that field, and then put them on our pressurized secondary water system. So I'm not flow irrigating it, and I'm not putting all that water raised in the groundwater, right? But the Weaver Morgan Health Department has a little rule. It's very vague, and it's gonna be an argument. So everybody here that's worried about groundwater might wanna help me solve this. I wanna build this up 3 feet from this pipeline corridor to here and put 5 lots there and get rid of the flow irrigation next to Whittier Estates. But that's something for the future. Right now, all I can do is put 3 lots there, and I can put a culvert in, I can bore under there, get the water on the other side of the road. I can do no more than that now. I didn't create the problem. I shouldn't be the one burdened by the problem, but I'll do some measures to help solve the problem. Thank you.
Anyone have any, just a minute, Brent. Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question because I'm not familiar with the brand. What is below where when you run the water out to the street? Where does it go?
To the street? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you said you were gonna run.
This is the low spot of this field. And if they hadn't built this road and elevated it up as high as it is, the water would just flow out across this meadowgrass field. There was actually an irrigation ditch that came along here, we irrigated from, that was elevated, so the water would just go out this way, anticipate into the ground. You know, if the river's high, the groundwater's high. You can't solve it completely. There should never have been basements in Whittier Estates. I have no problem with the condition that says slab on grade. And as far as, to your comment,
Yeah,
you were talking about lot 15. This
Lot-
is the
there's-
higher elevation lot.
I understand that, but there's just no space based upon what I'm seeing, and it's really small in front of me. So maybe I'm not seeing something that would answer my question, but it just doesn't look like there's any space for septic and a secondary if it fails. And the groundwater is going to be, it can change. I get that between lots. But oftentimes it's fairly consistent in that size of an area. So if somebody does a test pit out there, and maybe you know, having farmed it for 40 years, what the groundwater looks like, I mean, are we talking 3 feet, 4 feet, 10 feet?
This property is elevated compared to this. There was a elevation shift, the road actually goes across when they did it. So when I dug a test hole here, about here, I get groundwater about 6 feet.
Okay.
When I dug here, I never hit groundwater, I went to about 8 feet. And here again, I hit it to about 6 feet.
Okay, so it's fairly consistent. A little bit higher on lot 15, which is better for that lot.
Yeah.
Worse for the other lots, but 6 feet only leaves a couple of feet for percolation before you hit groundwater. That may be an issue just for you in the future, just so you know.
Yeah, and
Dealing
that's
with the health department.
Weaver Morgan Health Department, the type of septic system.
And it's not their code, it's state code.
Yeah.
So you'll have to abide by that, and whoever buys those lots would have to abide by that. So
Right.
It's just one of those things that they would need to know that there is a risk there.
But under the state code, local health departments can be strictly required.
They can make stricter, but not,
Done some, we were more.
yes, they have.
But yes, I'm aware that that would all have to be complied with.
I have a question. For preliminary, you need to submit a verification of approval from Weaver Morgan Health. Was that submitted? Did they submit?
The report says you have it.
Well, the question was asked, have you done the perk test, and the answer was
Oh,
no.
the tests were done.
That's what I thought. That's what I'm asking you.
Have been done.
Yeah,
Yes,
and feasibility and all that done.
that was my question. No, I don't need to see it. Just someone said that the perk tests weren't done, so I wanted to make sure that they were done, and we had that letter.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. So any more questions? Back with staff? No, we are ready, we can discuss. If you had any questions, the discussion among,
No, I think there's gonna be a few conditions.
added conditions? Okay.
There was a comment made that there is already something about a culvert somewhere on a map.
Yeah. It says in there, yeah, culvert is, well, no,
It's
that's,
okay, we're good.
kind of want to review some of maybe the added conditions that were brought up. The construction drawing approval. No walkout basements, no basements, including no walkouts, and slab on grade, homes only. What were the others?
Non-disturbance, I think was
It would
one.
be called a non-disturbance area.
Yep.
Member Taylor, are you okay on the detention? Or do we need a condition? The applicant can come forward.
I don't know anything about it cracking or not, but whatever the issues are, that, if you put a house there, as non-disturbance should be non-excavation, I guess is my point. But if the person that bought that lot wanted to put, because it's elevated from the road, 10, 15 feet of fill material against that hill, that would help stabilize. It's a disturbance, but it would make it more stable. What you don't want to do if you have something slipping is dig into it. But adding material to it puts weight against it and helps it. So how you define that is my issue.
Maybe, Chris, do you
Yeah,
have?
Chris, do you have an opinion on the
you have
verbiage there?
opinion?
As the code enforcer?
On non-disturbance, and specifically speaking of a subdivision up Trappers Loop area, non-disturbance is non-disturbance. You can up to it, but you can't go into it. You can't cut into it. We had it pretty specific. They did have it on the building plans as a non-disturbance line. And there's literally a foundation like inches from it, right? It's gutsy to me, but I'm not the one building it. And it meets all geological hazards. You know, geotechnical engineers and that, it's pretty amazing what they can do nowadays. Building homes right up to non-disturbance lines or fault lines or whatever it is. That's part of their game, not our interpretation of it.
If I were building on lot 15, I'd be worried about the slippage that exists above me, that already exists above me. So something like no digging but reasonable efforts to stabilize the neighboring hillside would make sense. Non-disturbance doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I get what Chris is saying. At some point, it's just a risk you're taking. It's a ticking time bomb potentially. Like it could slip at any moment, but that's why geo studies are done and slope studies are done to verify. And there's all sorts of things you can do to a hillside, but it just drives up cost.
Yeah, and if I understand one of the emails correctly, I'm certain the geological study was done, but the hill above is still slipping. So I think we got an issue. But I think if we say no disturbance, we prevent the stabilization, future stabilization of that hillside. And I'm not sure that's wise.
Might be an opportunity to put it back to the professionals, the geological engineers and different things. If there is a preventative measure that needs to take place, that it's put onto them to find those standards, and then it's reviewed by the Morgan County engineer and the geologist. It's a simple condition that's possible, instead of the statement of absolute none. I don't know what legal might say on that.
I think if the concern is by using the term non-disturbance, there can't be any future stabilization, I think you can articulate that, like non-disturbance except for stabilization in the future.
I'd be okay with that.
That's why she's paid the big bucks.
Having her here.
Okay, any more discussion?
So I'm curious still, Debbie, is that just gonna go down to the river if it goes out to the other side? But I don't still have a picture of how water's going, if they can kick it out. Can you explain that?
I mean, if it goes across the road, it would just go out into the field
That's where it goes.
and, yeah, and drain. Well, Brent, you'll need to come up and speak into the mic so recording can pick it up.
Drawing's not there, but there's a slough to the east, and water eventually makes it to that slough, and then it actually goes south through the lots of Whittier Estates and out to the river.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Can we bring the motions up?
Triple duty right now.
Okay. I move we approve the Meadowbrook subdivision phase 2, application number 25.061, allowing for a 3-lot subdivision located approximately west of the intersection of North Thurston Drive and West 3725 North in unincorporated Morgan County, based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated April 23rd, 2026, and with the following additional conditions. That areas labeled non-buildable on the plat will be labeled non-buildable and non-disturbance except for stabilization efforts with the concurrence of the county geologist. Number two, that no basements, including walkout basements, will be allowed, only slab-on-grade homes.
Construction drawing.
And approval of construction drawings.
Okay, I have a motion by member Taylor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by member King. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. We'll move on to the next item. This is WPR Mountain Villa Plat Amendment number 2.
Thank you. We've got, as stated, WPR Mountain Villa Plat Amendment Number 2. Owner Wasatch Peaks Ranch LLC, parcel number 00-0094-0174 and 00-0093-0461. Current zoning is Resort Special District. And the request is simply to adjust the limited common areas around the previously platted and recorded 12 townhome units. Administrative review is the sole issue in land use administration. We know that. But we do have the applicant here. If you do have any questions, but staff does recommend approval.
Can we scroll to that?
Oh, poor.
It's right before the maps. It's right before the. You want to see the maps too?
Yeah.
Okay, page 17. Any questions for staff or the applicant? If there's no questions or discussion, I'll be ready for a motion on this one. If you
Can you bring the motion?
bring the motion up. Page 13. Yeah, page 13.
Madam Chair, I move we recommend approval to the County Commission of WPR Mountain Villa Plat Amendment Number 2, application number 26.003, to adjust the limited common area of the subdivision based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated April 23rd, 2026.
Okay, I have a motion by member Watt. Do I have a second? Second by member Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay. Next item is the side yard setback code text amendment, our first legislative item.
Yes, thank you once again. Just here to seek for a text amendment for side yard setbacks code text amendment application 26.012. Request for approval of a text amendment to the Morgan County Code to amend the side yard requirements in residential and multiple family residential districts. This very, very simply, currently the provision requiring that in no case shall the total width of the two side yards be less than the height of the building has never been enforced. Other proposed strike-throughs are displayed in the proposed text section of this amendment. The proposed change removes language and standards outlined in 155-111 yard regulations to establish a clear and consistent setback requirement. This revision ensures reasonable expectations for lot owners, application of the code, and supports fair and defensible administration by county staff, namely me and the building official. Just to keep that simple. So we've got some of the listings above, but the strike through would be except that in no case shall the total width of the 2 yard setback, 2 side yards be less than the height of the building. That's impossible to enforce and has never been enforced. Other main buildings shall have a minimum side yard in feet of, and Commission Chair Sessions and I have had a deep discussion about this.
I don't know why Josh is striking that one. In these residential zones, there's not many other main uses of buildings, but you could have a school. Would you want a setback? You could also build an ag barn because agriculture is allowed in the R120. So I think you would want a setback. So I don't know why why he put the strike through it.
This would be a non-dwelling building, though. This would not be an ADU. This would be like an ag
Non-dwelling,
barn.
right.
Yep. Okay.
It talks about
we have that.
accessory
Yep.
have the setback, but this is just a non-dwelling main building.
Like
And
a barn. That's a good point.
And as we've been discussing, regardless, it would be 10 feet. No matter what was going to be put in there, regardless, it would be 10 under our code. So,
And so, what do you think? I would ask the attorney.
So, Chris, when you say that, are you saying that even other buildings would fall under the minimum side yard in feet for any dwelling?
yes.
So why don't we just add minimum side yard in feet for any dwelling or, yeah,
Or dwelling or main building? Okay.
there.
We were searching
I don't
for
understand
that.
the main building. I don't even understand that word.
I don't
Exactly.
either.
And that's part of the Confucius part of even just getting rid of it. So that is, what is main building? It might be-
Like main use, I'm assuming, I don't know.
I don't know, that's goofy.
It is.
So we're just gonna say a side yard setback is this,
10 feet.
and a rear setback is this, and a front setback is
And
this, and
8.6.
it applies to anything on the lot. Is
In-
that,
So to remove dwelling,
yeah, the dwelling doesn't make any sense if that's what you're trying to do.
Correct, in discussion of the residential and multifamily residential districts, yes.
so the minimum side yard in feet for in districts regulated by this subchapter shall be.
Is that clear enough? If you just say the minimum side yard setback in
In feet,
feet?
in districts.
The minimum side yard,
So strike for any dwelling,
yeah.
or what?
Well,
It seems like if you're gonna say dwelling, you gotta say everything else.
Yeah,
And if
or
you s-
building.
If you just wanna say everything, then you leave dwelling off. I
Yeah.
don't know.
yeah.
Building. Yeah. Building's a good word.
Just building.
Is building defined as something?
I'm looking. What's funny is main building appears in the title of a different code.
I just never assume that I
Weird.
know the definition of anything when I'm reading code. It's just whatever the code says.
So while she's looking that up, if it's okay to go to the next box.
Right.
Okay. And a total width of the 2 required side yards in feet of not less than 40. That's reasonably taken off. And then skipping page, if you'll go down to page 4 of 10, please. Thank you. provided that no private garage or other accessory building shall be located in feet closer to a dwelling on an adjacent lot less than 10 feet.
That's kind of redundant.
It is very redundant. On corner lots, main buildings shall have 2 front yards and one rear yard and 1 side yard. That makes it very difficult to build buildings. It makes it very difficult to adhere to fencing requirements. It makes it very difficult to have an RV pad, different things like that. So in an effort to be more consistent, 2 front yards and 2 side yards would be a more appropriate measure. If
Yeah, Josh
You see
took
reason.
this out of the chart because he said it's in the definition of side yard, that it's 2 front. I mean, on a
Corner
corner
lots.
lot, that it's 2 front, 2 side. But I said I don't like to have code in definition. If we're gonna have a chart, it should be in the chart, and he agreed that we just need to change it to 2 front and 2 side. And then leave the side yard in feet shall not be less than the 10.
What's the front yard distance back on page 3?
30.
30.
Big.
It's big.
That's it's big to have 2 of those on a corner lot. I don't mind having a one side defined as a front yard and one side defined as a corner setback. So you have front yard setback, that's really big. 2 30-foot. I mean, that's just a waste over there.
But 30
It's
and
always-
10's weird too.
What?
Don't you think 30 and 10 is weird too, though, if we say the other side is a side?
Yeah, but you could say 30 and 15, 30 and 12. I just think
Like,
30 and
make a
30 is too.
setback. Yeah.
It's always been that we've always had the 2 front setbacks on a corner lot.
It does make things,
It's,
when you're talking about corner lots, there's a reason that most jurisdictions put those lots as bigger. That way you can get a better, setback rating and everything else. But you've got right-of-way ventures, you've got line-of-sight ventures that you have to be considerate of, and it makes it very, very difficult. And if you don't do it correctly, people park on the street, and that's even worse for law enforcement.
but you have neighbors, and you'd want the house to be at the same distance from the street as yours on both sides. You
That's
wouldn't
true.
want
Yeah.
That's a good
the
point.
house to be moved forward on one side so that that neighbor's looking
That's a really good point. Because you have the setbacks on both
right,
sides.
so that it's
Yeah.
equal.
I heard it last night. Somebody buys lot. Well, most people want to build a house, right? They want to build their house, and they want to put it on the cheapest lot possible, which is most likely the corner lot. That's an unfortunate aspect because you can't build your large home on a smaller lot or with more requirements. You got to build your house on an appropriate lot instead of buying a lot and wanting to build your big home. The city was just talking about it the other night. So
Okay, building is defined in our code as any structure used or intended for supporting or sheltering any use or occupancy.
So it's
So,
anything.
so any building.
So building would be a good,
Is there a definition of main building? Yes.
No,
Primary building?
no, but it does appear in a title elsewhere, and then it refers to dwelling.
I happen to agree with you, Debbie, about enforcing ordinance out of definition. I find it to be very difficult, and I've had a judge state that to me as well while trying to enforce code. So
no one just thinks to look in the definition when you're looking up code.
There is main use or building defined, the principal use which will occur on a lot, or the principal structure to be used by the principal use on a lot, to which all other uses and structures are accessory.
I'm even more confused.
I think
Yeah.
we just leave it at building.
Building.
Yes.
And I do believe that's all I do have. Oh, actually, sorry. There was the side yard in feet shall not be less than 10, but we've already discussed that, so. Staff does recommend approval. That's the end of my presentation.
Any questions? I see we're gonna make the change that will be different than it's in our packet to change dwelling to building in the first line of the table. And then we're gonna unstrike the corner lots, but have it state on corner lots, main building shall have 2 front yards and 2 side yards. And unstrike the side yard in feet shall not be less than 10.
One question. It does say, and I know in the past, this is only the second one I've seen, it said it came from an applicant requested this, like filled in an application for the text change. Is that true? Okay. Cool. Sometimes we have the applicant or we say who it is. We don't have to. I was just curious.
Oh,
If the applicant is here, they can, you would need a hearing, and we also
Oh, that's right, that's right.
need a hearing, and if the applicant wants to speak, maybe a hearing first. Sorry, I just caught that.
Well, yep. Didn't realize she was the applicant. Okay.
Neither did I.
Should we do a public hearing first?
We can have the public hearing, because then she can address any concerns that are brought up
Perfect.
by the crowd. So, ready for a motion?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Member Taylor and a second by Member Maloney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on this code change, text amendment, can come forward.
That one's gone.
That one's gone. We can talk,
gone.
we can, Chris can talk to you out in the hall. Okay, there's no more public comment. Motion to go out.
So
Motion
moved.
close.
Okay. I'll give it to Member Watt. Motion by Member Watt, second by Member Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So now,
Yeah,
if the
but
applicant would like to
you
come
can.
forward,
Yeah.
just, come up and state your name, please.
My name's Lauren Hiller. I'm with Full West. And we got this from the range, and our builders are having a lot of confusion trying to figure this out. So just so I can provide them clear, we're sticking with the first line, but changing to building, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then sticking with the second line, unstriking, are we striking everything else because even the minimum side yard for a private garage or
Yeah, we're striking that.
it's duplicative, correct? Yep. And then corner lots turn into 2 front yards and 2 side yards?
Correct.
Okay. And then the side yard in feet shall not be less than 10.
10.
Is that duplicative of the first one, or how's that different?
I think the way this table's set up, that refers to corner lot. But I don't know if it's necessary. What do you think?
Can we go back to that, show the table?
You go
it's
back to the
duplicative.
table. After I was reading the table, I thought that, it seemed redundant, and I thought, okay, I think that is referring to corner lots.
First line, minimum side yard.
You're, okay, yeah, the first one, that's where we're changing dwelling to building. We're leaving that strike in the third box down. And the main building, and that one we're leaving the strikes in. So if you can go to the next page.
Wait, say, what about,
Page 4.
Page 4.
First line, second line, corner and corner lots. I thought that would cover it. Changing from lots to two.
2 front and 2 side. But that's on the next page.
Next page.
She's there.
There we go.
I don't think we're striking.
Yeah, the private garage is, we're striking that. The corner lot's coming back in. We're undoing the strike. And we're changing it to 2 front
And two
and 2
sides.
side.
But would those three cover it? Sorry, minimum side 10, total width 24, and then.
Go back to the
I don't
page
want to
above.
dismiss too much of our chart.
What?
I just,
Yeah, I think that is a duplicate. Because we're doing buildings on the first line. Go back to the second page, page 4. And the second to the last line is a
Is-
duplicate.
So it's another redundancy.
Yeah.
So I really think it meant to tie back into corner, but the way that it's set up, it appears to be redundant because I think the original, the 10-foot minimum covers it, whether it's a corner lot or not.
So there will be 3 lines. The minimum side for any building shall be 10. The total width of the two shall be 24. And then on Vernon's main building shall have 2 front yards and 2 rear sides.
10.
and we'll keep the government facilities, utility facilities and government. We're not getting rid of that. The very last box.
We're leaving that one in. Utility,
We're gonna keep that.
yeah, we're keeping that one.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
We're keeping that. And we're keeping corner lots.
Well, just a minute, okay. Yeah, now,
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to leave in that the corner lots will have, because it's addressed, if you go to 155.111A, front yard regulations, it says, on corner lots, main buildings shall have 2 front yards and 1 rear yard and 1 side yard. So it's covered there.
But you don't.
that,
We don't want.
we don't
the
want
rear
the,
yard.
we don't want the rear yard. That one has to
So
be
then it
changed.
has to be changed too.
I brought that up with Chris.
Yeah.
I brought that up with Chris, that has to be changed, but we can't do that because it wasn't advertised. We just advertised side yards.
But I think it's,
Close enough?
yes. I think there's some logic to the whole thing as well.
So we make the changes to this table.
Yes.
And we say that, change the other sections of code that conflict with that.
Correct.
To be in alignment with this.
Correct.
But we're not
And I
also
don't-
leading this line
Oh,
because you
but-
want it not in definitions, was your reason? So like we're keeping it in the chart.
Yeah, we want it in the chart.
We want it in the chart, okay?
And I just found that the other chart also had it too, for front yard.
Yeah.
So, although I think they did pass a thing allowing you to make, what was that?
Oh.
I can't
No.
remember the big word.
Like delineation?
No, script,
Oh, Scribner's.
Scribner's.
Scribner's errors. Yeah, I don't know that it's
And-
that, but I think.
But you could do a bunch of little changes.
Yes. Yes. I think we're okay with that.
Okay.
I don't think we have to, we want it consistent, but I think we want to double check the definitions again. Just to make sure that corner lots aren't defined the same way in the definitions.
Yeah, it,
Getting there.
it probably would be nice to have this chart in clean form also in the packet.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so in the definitions, it defines lot, corner, and then it adds on corner lots shall have 2 front yards and 2 side yards.
It's in definition.
in the definition.
But you want it in the chart.
We want it in the chart.
We want it in the chart. We just need to update it in the chart. So it's correct in definitions.
It's correct in
It's correct in
definitions.
definitions.
We just need to update it here. Cool.
So, yeah.
To update, yes.
So keep that, not strike it out, but have 2 front yards and 2 side yards. Buildings.
Buildings. Yeah. Because even accessories have to meet the front yard setback.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just
Correct.
buildings. I don't think we need to say main.
This is worded so stupid. It should just be setbacks. The setbacks on these, not to this building or not to this thing. It just should be set. This is written so confusingly, terribly.
Welcome to our code.
Code, yeah.
Written by a lawyer that charges by.
Yeah, probably. Not me.
See that? I'm a lawyer too. So.
So we're gonna strike main.
Yeah, the building doesn't have 2 front yards, 2 side. I mean, the lot has.
The lot, you're right.
It's just
On corner lots shall have 2 front yards and 2 side yards.
corner.
Corner lots shall have,
I think that works. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, 2 front and 2 side. And maybe when this goes,
I just wanted one line straight.
no, I think it is, and when this goes to the county commission, maybe they can have a clean version, so that maybe they won't be as confused as we are.
Thank you.
Okay, so you understand the changes? You want to maybe repeat them so we,
Pretty, okay.
Before we move on, let me double check another definition, because now I have an icky feeling
Okay.
about something else.
So while you're looking that up, except that in no case shall the total width of the 2 side yards, it's gone. Correct. I'm looking at
but
page,
the very first one, we're removing,
we on page 3.
I'm on page 3.
Let's go to page 3.
go to
Okay.
page 3,
I'm on page 3.
the very top one.
We're
Yeah.
keeping.
Yep, first one we're keeping.
Okay.
Read it.
The minimum side yard in feet for any dwelling in districts regulated by this subchapter shall be.
We're-
Reload that. I can't even read it.
It's saying building. I think that's when we're changing to no.
Building. Yes.
The minimum side yard in feet for any building in districts instead of dwelling. So strike dwelling and put building.
Gotcha. Okay. The minimum side yard in feet for any building in districts regulated by this subchapter shall be. Then the next box, the total width of the 2 required side yards in feet shall be. And then the next box, except that in no case shall the total width of the 2 side yards be less than the height of the building is removed.
Removed.
The next box, other main buildings shall have a minimum side yard in feet of, and that is stricken, correct? And a total width of the 2 required side yards in feet of not less than is stricken. Page 4. The minimum side yard in feet for a private garage or accessory building shall be remains. The next box, provided that no private garage or other accessory building shall be located in feet closer to a dwelling on an adjacent lot than 10 feet is stricken. Next box, on corner lots shall have 2 front yards and 2 side yards is what it should be stated as.
And you can remove the word on.
On, just say corner lots shall have.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And then the side yard in feet shall not be less than is stricken. Utility facilities and governmentally operated essential service facilities remains. Okay. Do you believe that is everything for that?
Can we scroll to the motion?
And I double checked, I wanted to make sure that there wasn't definitions for side yard and front yard that would mess this up. It's all okay.
Okay.
Do you want a motion?
Yes, ready for a motion.
I move we recommend approval to the county commission for the side yard setback code text amendment based on the findings listed in the memorandum dated April 23rd, 2026, with the following additional conditions: that we make the changes as just stated by Chris, and that we rectify any conflicting references in the code and standardize on this language.
Thank you. Motion by member Taylor.
Second.
A second by member King. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you for waiting. Okay, the next is the Wildland Urban Interface Code Text Amendment.
Good evening, Brad Wilkes, Morgan County Fire Chief. So there's a packet, if you just go to Exhibit A, the last page. So our request is in bold. We're gonna strike the state and make that international fire code. And then we need to change.
Hang on just a second.
Page 7. Of 7.
Yeah.
Let's-
7 of 7.
7 of
Should be
7.
what's listed
There it
in the
is.
packet.
Okay.
There, whoops.
Wait, well,
There we go.
Oh. Oh,
Now we're on 1. We want to be on 7, right?
you want to be on page 7.
7 of 7. Cool.
We there.
Nice.
Basically, we're asking
all
that.
right? Is that what we're looking at?
That's it. So the top one, you can see the strike through state, and we're bold and international. So Morgan County has adopted the International Fire Code, 2006, but it's being amended for 2024. Yeah, 18 years to get it amended, but every year we get state amendments. So as you drop down into B, state required modifications. So the point of this is that we don't have to revisit this every time the state of Utah does an amendment. We're just gonna adopt it as they're required modifications each year. And the biggest example is, this is the legislative ramifications for the WUI code just from this last legislative year, and there's 3 different House bills. And this will just make it so those are automatically adopted by Morgan County in the international code. They're gonna adopt the 24, and the big one is House Bill 215 says the WUI code supersedes any local land use regulation or policy. So they just told us we're gonna have to follow it. And then House Bill 48 says if we don't follow it and decide not to, and we have a fire in the county gets to pay for the entire suppression cost. So Sevier County last year, you probably saw the Monroe Canyon fire. That's the reason for the laws. They weren't following some WUI codes. The fire cost $92 million to suppress. Sevier County would get the bill this year if that happens, and not the state taxpayers. So put a bunch of teeth in it, which is the reason we've asked for the text amendment.
So this text amendment is specific to the 2006. So every time you change the code, you're going to have to update this rather than just saying, we're hereby adopting all.
See, yeah, so that line 14, let's see, B, excuse me.
Whoops.
B, so it says state required modifications. That's our blanket statement, so we don't have to re-adopt every year. The state will adopt the state modifications. The state's taking over with the 2024 adoption of the WUI code. They're gonna run it, not international and not county. So that's why that language is in there. So we don't have to come back every time and say, House Bill 48 now needs to be adopted, and House Bill 41 needs to be adopted, and House Bill 215. It will just be whatever the state tells us in their modifications through fire, forestry, and state lands, we're gonna follow.
So that's the gist of number 2.
So honestly, I think we need to clarify that better, Brad. That's my bad. Because we currently have the 06, but the state has the 03. And I think we need to add something in here that,
I think if you just put, Janet, current
Yeah.
WUI code, that just covers this.
yeah, so maybe up in A, we just put.
Well, the one we've
current-
adopted is the 2006.
It is, but maybe after the 2006, we say, and any future.
Well, are you saying, so is it that the county no longer has the prerogative of adopting anything different than what the state adopts?
We have-
And when the state adopts it?
Correct. We have to adopt the minimum, which we do anyway. We have the minimum codes, but the point is they're changing, they're doing state amendments to the international code almost every year now. And we haven't addressed that since the 2006 adoption.
But the state is on 2003. We've adopted 2006. So we're out of alignment with the state, and you're saying we cannot be out of alignment with the state.
Correct.
So why would we say any of this other than we hereby adopt whatever the state has currently adopted with all current amendments?
Question for legal.
So when I drafted this, and I was trying to make it work because we had already adopted the 06, but then when you go into the admin rules, they're talking about 03. But they're gonna bring, the
03
state's
up.
gonna, yeah. So I think we can modify this a little bit to make sure that whatever they do, whatever the state does, we do. Because this is how we get our funding. If we don't have an ordinance, like he said, we're gonna be paying for it.
So I have a question for legal. So, I just want to get this on the record. Is this kind of blanket adoption without reference legal?
Yes, as long, we do have reference, because we're referencing the state's required modifications.
But they're on 2003.
You're saying what I suggested, where you just adopt whatever, you
Well,
just blanket adopt whatever they do
Normally,
with any
and
changes
I
in
don't
the
want to get
future?
into a world, but normally, when you make an adoption, you're adopting some specific language that has specific code provisions. You don't normally just blanket accept whatever's going to happen here forward in a legal code or ordinance. So I'm a little bit concerned.
But if we're a subdivision of the state, and we just say, hey, we're hereby no longer doing anything specific other than just defaulting to the state.
We're a separate political entity that falls in the state.
And my concern in drafting it was that because we had already adopted the 2006, like, I don't know anything really about it. And so there might have been reasons we wanted the 06 version, but then we're adopting the changes or modifications required by the state and the admin rules that refer to the 2003 edition.
2006, for clarification from my end, because I just came in here trying to clean up a bunch of messes.
Yeah.
And the adoption in the records here at the fire department refers to 2006. So the 2003 in the States, just something I wasn't aware of.
Can we get a $92 million bill if we're following the 2006 and the state's following 2003?
And we don't modify to fit.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah, and it's right here. I'm linked to it. If you find it, you just type in Morgan County GUI. It's the third Google result. And it actually says, to Tina's point, it says 2006 on it. Morgan County, 2006.
So it's not the 2006.
Well, it does say Utah Wildlife Urban.
Does it say 2006
Edition?
Okay, but,
International Fire Code?
but it says it in our code. See, that isn't changed.
two
See?
different codes.
Right.
The International Fire Code and the WUI code are two different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
WUI code is the one,
It's
the
2006.
06 is the reference, because the WUI code, that IFC, they're very good about, that's kind of separate. 21 is the adoption, we're just trying to deal with the WUI.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so what would be the text that would make us current to today? That includes the provisions that were just passed in this legislative session.
So that's where it's complicated.
I'm getting you.
No, I agree with you, and I don't have the answer because House Bill 41, and I'll read it to you. Utah adopts the 2024 edition of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code. House Bill 48 pushed that off adoption 1 year till 27. So one House bill says 24, they're pushing it off because the rollout for House Bill 48, which was high-risk urban interface and a whole other mess that we've dealt with, had assessments that Morgan County had to assess individual owners within targeted areas called high-risk WUI. It's a URAP map. We couldn't even pixel to get the addresses. So what we did, which was Tuesday night, is we rewrote our county sprinkler code. As far as I know, we're the first county in Utah to address URAP and House Bill 48 in a county code for sprinkling. We've defined our parameters, and we've set all high risk to be individually rated by the International Fire Code. And this is really the last thing to try to get us.
When does House Bill 48 take effect? Or is it still-
Portions of House Bill 48 are in effect right now, which means we have to do the ratings, the assessment ratings for those that they deem are in high risk. And it's URAP, there's a portal and it'll show you a map you can get on and look. Morgan County's one of the least affected by numbers. I think we had under 200 houses. And most of them are in the Highlands and Mountain Green.
I bet mine's one of them.
Yeah.
I was
But-
down at the legislative session with some of
So,
this,
yeah, so you understand what they did was said that the counties have to collect the $100 assessment for each one. Well, it's getting awfully late to do the assessments. The rollout was terrible, so they delayed. We still have to do the physical assessments. They're not gonna get billed for it until 27.
I'm just afraid we're gonna make a mistake again.
But you see,
So
my
is-
dilemma is,
yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that we're ahead of the game. And the text amendment with what we have, the 2006 is not, they've already made like 5 amendments to the state required modifications, but we have no reference. And you're exactly right. My reference was 2006. We have reference to 2003. However, we choose to word it, and I don't know. I want to make sure that we're compliant, because I don't want to get the taxpayers in a pickle here because I missed something that I should have got.
So I guess my question with these updates is a lot of it, it's not retroactive, right? Because you just said there's 200 addresses, but if a house is there or something's built, like, is it more just we're being mindful going forward? I mean, what does that look like? Because what you're saying is $92 million if it's Tina's house that was built in 1967. Where, I guess, just what is the implication for the county? Because that's scary for taxpayers. Like, are they saying houses that were built earlier?
No,
if you
so it
didn't
really
mitigate?
doesn't, no retrofitting, no, it doesn't
It's
go
all-
back. What it does is if you're up in the Highlands and you're gonna get assessed,
Yeah.
and they're gonna tell you you're in high risk, if you have a house that's in the high risk, my understanding is we'll come and say, okay, here's what some things you can do to protect yourself a little bit, but any building permit going forward is you got to meet
Crazy code.
fire-wise, you got to meet, they're called smooth exposure scores, URAP. Basically, you're going to have to fire harden your house. You're going to have to put defensible space. Going forward, you will have to do that following the code, and the state's going to force us to do it. You know, in the end, it's a smart thing. When you build a house up in these trees, you're going to have to build it not to burn.
Is it also though then, because you guys have different fire chiefs over different jurisdictions, even in our county. So then that is also based on who's managing that area?
No.
Okay.
We Mountain Green, they do not have the ability to not.
No, I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about like Peterson versus Croydon, because we all have different,
No, it's the county.
Okay.
It's the state and then the county. They don't even differentiate. When they do WUI code adoptions, it's the counties on the hook. It's not individual cities.
okay.
Yeah, the counties are responsible, and so it's the county's responsibility to make sure the cities are in line.
I guess my question was more around enforcement.
Yeah, it's going to be all going forward on the house hardening. We're not, the
Yeah.
law does not state in any point that,
Yeah.
or the code, that you have to bring your house up to
No,
harden.
totally, yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that. It's like sprinkling systems.
Yeah.
We can't go in and make people in 50-year-old houses put sprinkling systems in. It's unreasonable. So, however you figure out, they're legal expert.
So what I'm thinking is if after the 2006 edition, because that's what our code already says, we add in something to the effect that and further adopt any later edition of the WUI code adopted by the state. And then we can get rid of B. So then we're always up to, so if the state adopts the 2024 WUI, we're good.
Does that eliminate the ability of us to make a more stringent code?
No, we have the total authority to be more strict.
I know, but the text that Janet's talking about, if we put that in there, that just says whatever the state says we do we still have the autonomy to create additional?
Yeah, that's actually
Yes.
in the code.
Okay.
We
That's
could.
that's in the WUI code. You can't back off, but Mountain Green is the example. They're more strict on sprinkling codes and defensible space now than the county fire is, but they have the authority because they're a special service district. We can make it stricter by code. We can't go under.
Yeah, I think the IFC, all those codes allow the building official or the fire marshal or
Already
whatever.
having jurisdiction is the word, and it happens. When I came here, one of the big things, and we've come a long ways, is I want stuff standard. I want standard protocols. I mean, Chief, I learned it from you for years. Standard policies and standard training and standard policies create standard outcomes, and then we don't get ourselves in trouble. How come he did this and I didn't have to do that? And I deal with it every day here. How come you're making me do this when he didn't do that 4 years ago? So when we do this, the state code is the standard for us. If we choose at some point to make it stronger for a legitimate reason, then we'll address it then. Because the code does allow us to do that.
I just wanted us to not give up our right.
So something in line with like, and in compliance with current state
Yeah,
laws, regulations, is that what you're thinking? I'm talking to the attorney.
What I'm thinking is then we add a sentence. If the state of Utah adopts a later edition of the International WUI Code, the county shall be deemed to have adopted the most recent edition of the WUI as adopted by the state, including any amendments thereto, without the necessity of further action by the county unless the county commission affirmatively elects to adopt a different edition by ordinance.
I like that.
That clears it up for my end. That's
should we go into public hearing real quick? Get that out of the way.
All motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by member King, a second by member Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are in public hearing. Seeing none.
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by member Watt and a second by member Taylor to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So how do you want us to,
So what I would like is,
can you get back up to the, or down?
The motion.
so I think we keep the first paragraph, and then I can read the additional sentence that needs to be added at the end of it. And then I don't think we need B.
Okay.
We just need the first paragraph.
So the top one, so Madam Chair, I make a motion, I move we recommend approval to the County Commission of the Wildland Urban Interface Code text amendment based on the findings listed in the memorandum dated April 23rd, 2026.
With the elimination of everything except the first paragraph, and then the addition after that first paragraph to include the sentence, if the state of Utah adopts a later edition of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code, the county shall be deemed to have adopted the most recent edition of the International Wildland Urban Interface Code as adopted by the state, including any amendments thereto without the necessity of further action by the county, unless the county commission affirmatively elects to adopt a different edition by ordinance.
Second.
Okay, motion by member Watt and a second by member Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, I do have a question. We got an email from Josh regarding the flag lot off the bulb.
Yeah.
Are you,
I didn't know that.
aren't we asked to change the code. Does he not, I had a hard time following what his letter.
I don't think he wants to change the code. I think, and plus he didn't want to hold up the applicant. I think the bigger issue was, and I didn't know that this was an existing non-conforming lot and driveway at the end of it, yeah.
Okay, it was,
So,
If it's okay to kind of discuss this a little bit and put it in your mind, okay? There's only so many things that enforcement can do, current enforcement can do, if the past enforcement did not succeed at what they were attempting to do. As this building was being built, it did not have building permits, okay?
and it had a cease and desist order.
Yep, had a cease and desist, it had a couple stop work orders, and it just wasn't followed through, okay? He built the building, he built the dwelling. People are currently living in the building. I can
applicant's
assure to
living.
you that the county is not gonna pay the money to demolish the house. So that leaves a couple resolutions. One of those resolutions would be to allow it, for the amendment or the change or however it goes. And then have the property owner submit building plans, which would be required regardless. Have the building official go out there and code enforcement. As he applies for this building, he will be charged a double fee. That double fee would be substantial to remind everybody else that this cannot happen any longer. Or the next item might be we keep it where it's currently at, not allow it, so it's in non-conformance, and the county spend however much money it's going to be to tear it down, which I do not see that happening.
I don't either, but I have a hard time ignoring code to fix a problem that was a self-inflicted wound. He was a developer that developed all around that parcel. So,
Understand. We
so
understand.
I don't like that route. But I don't
Any-
have a problem changing the code.
Is there a civil remedy?
What's the penalty
now.
for building without a permit or occupying without a C of O?
So I'm just,
What's in those?
well, I'll tell you what the penalty is currently. If I caught somebody building without a permit, they would receive a stop work order. If they continued to build without a permit, they would start the code enforcement process. I would issue 3 violation letters to them, including citations, and when they did apply for a building permit, they would receive the double fee. Now, in this situation though, knowing that the county's got no other retribution against him, bringing the property to closer to compliance is better than leaving it where it's currently at. So he's completely non-compliant right now. Allowing the changes to take effect would bring him closer to being in compliance, knowing that we're still going to be issuing the citations and giving him a double fee. I would estimate with that double fee permit, it could be pretty substantial. I don't want to give a number on public record, but I would assume it could be in the thousands of dollars. It would be greater than thousands of dollars.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to
This didn't
challenge
get
you a little bit
inspected?
because
Challenge me.
we updated the enforcement code. I did, and gave us a lot more tools in the toolbox. It's not updated on the website. Today, if this happened, we got a ton of remedies, and I think it's like one
Couple
or two
citations.
letters, and then I can start injunctions. I mean, I can stop things, and the
And-
penalties are substantially
Yes,
more now
currently we could do that, but we
Yeah.
can't do it with this particular building.
because it's already done. No judge is gonna allow or make them tear it down.
Well, I
It's just not gonna
understand that.
happen.
So what inspections were done on that?
We do have some documentation from the former building official. We do have the stop work orders. There are some photos that were taken. I've tried to communicate with, I've wanted to stay out of it just a little bit to allow things to take place the way they need to take place. But with certain conditions, it allows the building official to make special permissions to allow something as long as it was built with life, health, safety considerations that they would be able to go forward. But it does have to meet all the current, codes. So some things might have to be changed in the home, but that's according to Dustin.
So what, do we have a record of what inspections took place in the house? And I don't know what
I-
this has to do with planning commission, other than
Right.
I'm just curious.
Other than the bulb,
I mean, did they have a foundation inspection?
That
And
is-
that's where it stopped?
that's kind of where it's going, right? I don't want to say on public record of something that I don't, that I haven't dug into deep.
But the remedy was to create a flag lot.
Yes.
And the only hangup is the phrase about the bulb. But can't we change the word to say that something they may allow, the county commission may allow a flag lot?
Yes.
The end of, I don't
We
know why
could, I think
Josh,
Josh did not want to do that because it creates a lot of problems as far as the fire access, emergency access, and snow.
So I'm,
but yet the fire department already signed off on it, and it's at the end of a cul-de-sac. So
The fire department approved it a while ago, right? Here's something else that probably needs to be updated. The applicant has chosen to move forward with a unfavorable recommendation from the planning commission to be able to go to county commission, I do believe in early May. And that's the way that the applicant chose to go. When that was brought up, that's just how it had to be brought up. So I'm sure I'm gonna have to explain this to county commission as well. I don't agree with everything the way that it happened. I don't. But sometimes you have to look at something with I can't do anything about what happened. I can't do anything about that now, but I can send a message that if you do this in the future, this is what happens. And I can't think of too many double fees that we issued prior to me being here a year ago. I know there was a few.
But what it's saying is that you could ignore the code, and if you wait long enough, what is happening?
However,
That's my fear.
Just pay a
Yeah.
couple,
That's
couple
what
$1,000
happens.
bucks and
But yeah,
and it's
I'm
cheaper.
sorry, 10,000.
No,
way
no,
cheaper.
no. That is not what can happen now because of what she just said. There is more teeth in the ordinance that we immediately stop it upon recognition of it. If they don't stop, then we can move toward immediate legal action, whether it's evicting from a property that they might own, right? That I've done it. There was a builder up in the Highlands, and I walked up there and I said, everybody can leave. And I can do that. That's what a stop work order allows you to do. Yes, it takes a little bit of babysitting, but that's why there's a code enforcement officer in Morgan County.
so
Not
with
to
them,
be heavy-handed, but you got to at some point.
with them electing just to move forward, then what's on our plate? Anything?
Just to deny, or
I mean, we had this tabled or
Yeah.
continued
Yes,
or whatever.
yes, and that I had nothing to do with. I just heard about that.
but see, we've tabled it
Quest.
to a date certain, so he can't move it up.
He didn't move it up. He just said,
He wants us to deny it.
no, he's,
That I don't know.
Treating it as
I know we
denial.
did, but that's what he wants.
no, I think Josh has the ability to treat it as a denial. Is that
No.
right?
No, we
This is going somewhere that I have no information on. I can just express to you.
it's with us, and we postponed it so we could make the change to the code, and we did it to a date certain.
I have no information on that.
And I understand
I
you
can
don't.
I
but-
can only give you the information of enforcement of the past that did not happen. Leads it to unenforcement of current anything. I can't do anything about it except give them a double fee. Go with the building official as he does the inspection on the property, and make sure that it is adhered to life, health, and safety. If it passes, they can continue living there. If it doesn't, that opens up a whole new part of it.
Even though it doesn't comply with code.
Well, that's kind of why it was proposed to you to become closer to compliance.
But Josh's email just made it sound like that he had given them the option to either come back to us or just ignore us, treat it as a
Denial.
denial and move forward.
And I after I learned about the meeting, I was not instructed to be at the meeting. If I would have stood up and I would have had this conversation with you last meeting. And I apologize for that. And if it would have led you to helping the property to be less compliant than it was yesterday, then I think you would have understood that we're not trying to get around the code. We're not trying to just change the code for every blah, blah, blah person out there. We're trying to help this property to be more compliant than it was yesterday, following current building code and following our current enforcement techniques. I can't give a citation to somebody for speeding 3 days ago if I didn't give them a citation 3 days ago.
I'm just confused about where we're at. Is it coming back to us or not?
I don't think so. And I don't know where it says that, but that's been my understanding from the get-go is if the planning commission fails to act, they can treat it like a denial and just
But
go
we
straight to
acted.
county.
We didn't fail to act. We
Yeah, I'm not
acted.
sure how you define fail to act. I don't know.
So I'm looking, but that's been what I've been told from the
So
get-go.
it'll either appear on our agenda or it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did not fail to act. We acted to try to remedy the situation. We were willing to find a solution.
Except somebody brought up some obscure code section.
Me? I know. Obscure.
It was flat out in
It
there.
exists flat out in
Just
there.
like in bold.
And it's only been 2 years since it was written. And I remember because, the reason I remember that was in there because I didn't like it. And I argued with Josh and said, I don't see why it can't be at the end, as long as the fire department signs off on it and blah, 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 blah. So that's why I remembered. Okay. That's it. We will need minutes approved.
Motion.
Okay. Yeah, motion by member King and a second by member Watt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimous. Ready for adjournment? Or we're just gonna stay here?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by member